The fire engine's siren shrieked outside my house. Boots slammed the pavement. My son, the fire chief, took the steps, 2 at a time. "Door," he called, and the ram answered with a thud the house felt in its bones. Neighbors clustered. Thin smoke curled from the kitchen. Inside, the crew moved check, call, clear until the hallway opened onto a room no one could forget. A silence fell so sharp, it rang. 2 people were where they should never have been, and shame heated the air more than any flame. My son didn't look for me. He looked at the floor, borrowing steadiness from boards that once held his first steps. The father of my son, the man I loved most, was stuck to his lover, held fast by glue after I'd secretly replaced the lubricant he hid with glue. When suspicion of his cheating finally outweighed my doubt, I don't recommend it. The firefighters had to pull them apart. If you want to know how a heart breaks and how it heals, stay with me. Tonight I slid into the passenger seat to fetch a sweater and touched a secret no one leaves on purpose. A slick tube hiding where spare maps used to live. Back inside, a new message blinked on a phone that never pings 5 careless words, and a red heart. "You were incredible tonight. Dad." The house kept breathing the way old houses do, but the air felt wrong, with a perfume I've never worn. I set 2 cups on the counter, because habit is stubborn, only one steamed. 40 years teach a woman the grammar of silence, the commas in missed calls, the periods in late dinners, the exclamation point of a lie that finally says itself out loud. I'm not 20, I won't scream. I straighten the pictures on the wall, and something in me straightens too. If you've ever rinsed a plate slower just to borrow 1 more minute before the truth, sit with me. Do you hear it knocking? The living room still held the day's small mercies mail stacked straight. A shawl folded on the arm of the chair, but his jacket ruined the picture. It lay where it fell, a careless dark shape. When I lifted it, the lining breathed out a sweetness that didn't belong to me. Perfume I don't wear. Not floral like my Sunday lotion, not citrus like the hand soap by the sink. Something louder, shinier, the kind that introduces itself before a woman does. I pressed the cuff to my nose, then set it down like something fragile. As if gentleness could keep it from being true. I wiped the counter, not because it needed it, but because my hands did. In houses like mine. Doubt never slams doors. It pads in softly, checks the photographs, tastes the air. I listened for the old clock. Tick, tock. In that steady grammar, I heard a new sentence forming, and it did not have my name in it. His phone was where he always leaves it face up. Bravely unlocked. The way a man advertises trust. It almost never pings. Jack hates email. But not tonight. A strip of light bloomed across the screen, blunt and bright in a tired room. 5 words, a red heart. Not my words, not my heart. I didn't gasp. Women my age learn to breathe around pain, like walking with a pebble in your shoe through a long afternoon. I set the phone back exactly as found, the way you return a borrowed grief. I washed 1 cup, then the other, slow as prayer. The kettle clicked off. I couldn't remember turning it on. When the house is quiet, you hear the seams where kindness thins, where routine hides its tremble. I dried my hands and straightened a frame by the hallway. In the glass, my face looked like my mother's, steady, tired, still choosing gentleness first. For now, gentleness later. The truth. I have kept books for 40 years, flower orders, hotel invoices, the rhythm of a small life balanced on numbers that must add up. So when a crisp rectangle slipped from his pants pocket, my fingers moved before my feelings did. The header said steakhouse, the footer said San Antonio. He said Dallas, the receipt says otherwise. 2 entrees, a bottle he knows I love. The one we saved for our 10th anniversary. Do you know the sound a memory makes when it breaks? It's quieter than you'd think. I folded the slip once, twice, then opened it flat, as if the truth might change its mind. The pen in the junk drawer scratched the date into a small notebook I've used for recipes and holidays and now, apparently, accounting for what cannot be forgiven. I took a picture. The phone clicked like a tiny judge. The house kept breathing. I kept standing. The coffee cooled. The lies were warm. There is a silence that cuddles rain on the roof, a sun napping on Sunday. And there is the other kind, the one that sits across from you and won't blink. 40 years teaches you how silence sounds. Tonight's had weight to it, like a winter coat hung on my shoulders without my permission. I moved through the kitchen the way I move through grief, small, careful, leaving space for what can't be said. The stove light made a soft halo on the stovetop. Dust glittered in it like a private weather. I could have called him into the room and asked a simple question. I could have, but some truths, like bread, need time to prove. So I let the silence rise. I let it tell me what a polite mouth won't. The clock kept time. The sink remembered our mornings. I put my palm on the table we bought secondhand and promised myself I would not disappear. I have saved baby teeth in tiny envelopes, report cards with coffee rings, recipes written on the backs of grocery lists. Tonight, I started saving what hurt me. I laid the receipt on a tea towel, squared the corners like a seamstress, and took its picture. I opened the glove box again and looked, not with shock now, but with inventory. I am a woman who counts. The lens blinked, the phone hummed. Click for the bottle, click for the napkins, click for the place where maps used to be. I do not know when love turns into a ledger, only that it does when trust goes missing. I made a folder with a plain name and slid the images inside. No flour on these keepsakes, no sugar. I whispered the date out loud, anchored myself to it like a dock in wind. Proof is not revenge. Proof is a railing on the stairs when your knees shake. From the bedroom came the ordinary thunder of a man asleep, the kind of snore you learn to hear as a lullaby. He sleeps, I unlearn us. I stood in the doorway and studied his face the way I study dough, looking for signs too slack, too tight, almost right. The moon was careless on the comforter, painting us in borrowed grace. Once, I would have touched his shoulder and asked if he wanted tea. Tonight, I touched the doorframe instead and steadied myself on wood that has held up this house longer than any promise. It is a strange intimacy, noticing the ways you have been kind, how you tuck blankets, wash collars, save the good peaches. I thought of the email's red heart, cheap as a sticker, and felt something in me sit up straighter. Not rage, resolve. I am not a storm. I am a lighthouse. Let him sleep. Let morning make its case. I keep an old paper address book in the junk drawer, its spine softened by grocery lists and birthdays. I opened it like a chapel and found her name, Mrs. Carter, who wrote me a check when the bakery's first oven broke and refused to be paid back. I need a truth I can stand on. The phone rang through years of PTA bake sales and funerals and casseroles on doorsteps. Honey, she said, and I almost said never mind. But there is a courage that only comes when you are tired of your own explanations. I told her I needed a number, the kind that leads to answers, not comfort. She didn't pry. Women like us respect the quiet between sentences. I'll text you Tom, she said. He helps without making a mess. I thanked her for teaching me, long ago, that kindness can be firm. After we hung up, I pressed the address book closed and felt steadier. The message arrived while I was wiping the counter in small circles. Unknown number, a name attached 2 seconds later. Tom Carver, he texted, I'll help. Noon. I stared at the words the way you stare at a shoreline after a hard swim. I typed slower than my hands wanted to move. Thank you. A quiet place, please. He sent an address I knew, small cafe, chipped mugs, good pie, sensible refuge. I took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I have always preferred recipes to riddles, contracts to rumors. A professional means we will speak in daylight, with pens and times and copies for both parties. The thought gentled me. I put on a cardigan, the blue one with elbows I keep meaning to mend, and set aside a folder. Not much inside yet, just enough to say I'm not imagining it. I poured water into a plant by the window and watched the soil drink. Even thirsty things can be patient. Morning in the bakery forgives a lot. The mixers hum like friendly gossip. The ovens exhale cinnamon and courage. I tied my apron and let the muscle memory take over scale. Whisk, fold, scrape, flour on my hands, not lies. A woman came in for flan, the kind with the old caramel burn my mother taught me, and asked how I keep the texture so soft. Low heat, long patience, I said, and we both smiled at the metaphor. Work is where my body remembers I am useful. I printed invoices, circled delivery times, taped a note on a box for the Grand Hotel Daniel. Will carry it later, and I will pretend not to worry about the stairs, between timers. I glanced at the folder on my phone. Evidence sat there like a quiet guest waiting to be offered coffee. Not yet. I thought, first, feed people, then feed the truth. The bell chimed. The day kept its promises. The cafe was the kind with the second-hand chairs and sunlight that makes mercy out of dust. He was there already, a notebook open, a pen that looked like it listened. Tom stood to shake my hand and didn't fill the air with guesses. Bless him for that. I handed him what I had: photos, a receipt, a date circled like a bruise. He placed each thing on the table with careful fingers, as if they were heirlooms. We go slow, he said. We stay clean. We build what will stand in a room full of strangers. I nodded, because rooms full of strangers is what this might come to. He asked for names, places, patterns. I answered in whole sentences. When the waitress brought coffee, she set sugar between us, and I didn't touch it. Some bitterness is honest. He slid a blank form toward me. This is permission to look, he said. I signed my name like I was steadying a ship. On the walk home, I repeated his rules the way I memorize oven temperatures. No confrontations, only proof. It felt like a kindness to my future self, a woman I intend to meet upright, not undone. At the kitchen table, I opened a small spiral notebook I've used for birthdays and grocery totals, and wrote a new title on the first page, What I Know. Under it, dates, times, places, not feelings. Feelings can run, facts can stand. I stapled a printout of the email, slid the receipt into a plastic sleeve, and tucked a copy of my bakery's incorporation papers behind them. As if to remind the truth what all this touches, I added a page for questions I won't ask out loud. Who buys that perfume? Who orders that wine? The pen moved like a needle, making a hem, closing a raw edge, not hiding it. When I was done, I set the notebook beside the salt. Ordinary, ready, steady, Jack with Allison Reed, my daughter-in-law. The words arrived with the photo Tom texted. Grainy from distance, but merciless in meaning. A telephoto framed 2 figures crossing the glow of a host stand, his palm at the small of her back, bodies tilted toward a secret. Restaurants are kind to first dates. They dim the lights and forgive the truth. I stared at the image until the table number blurred. It wasn't the hand I noticed first, but the posture, a soft lean, a practiced ease. Families lean like that at baptisms, not in corners where candles pretend to be stars. I pinched the screen, their faces sharpened, then softened as if mercy tried to intervene. The room around me was quiet enough to hear the phone's tiny pulse. No accusations left my mouth. I saved the picture to the folder with the plain name and folded my breath into my chest. Evidence, not echo. Daylight, not drama. I taught her our flan. I called her daughter. Memory did not argue. It set the table. The pan I keep for custards is scuffed at the rim, where caramel cools too fast if the kitchen window is open. Allison stood beside me one summer, stirring with the patience of someone learning a family's accent. We talked about whether to tilt the mold, how sugar smells right when it darkens but doesn't burn. I praised her steady wrist. She laughed at herself when the caramel set crooked, and I tilted the plate to hide the flaw. I have hidden many flaws for the sake of love. In my mind, that apron still ties at her waist, clean ribbon, borrowed belonging. I placed the pan back on its hook and let the metal knock, a small bell announcing that the recipe has changed. It is a terrible thing when your own toast feels like a goodbye. He laughed like a stranger. The video Tom sent was filmed from a sidewalk table, blurry, respectful, more shadow than scandal. Yet the sound was clear, the tight, surprised laugh I had tried to coax out of him on long winters. It arrived easy for her. She leaned in, hair catching light, her mouth close to his ear, the kind of closeness we pretend is harmless because good people deserve soft moments. The camera drifted a little, and so did I, to the first time Jack made me laugh in a grocery store aisle by mispronouncing mascarpone and insisting it meant more spaghetti. Decades collapse quickly when a new laugh replaces an old vow. I watched twice, then again, not to punish myself but to set the tone in my ledger fact, not fantasy. On the third play, I muted the sound and discovered the worst truth. His face didn't need her voice to look tender. His inbox too clean to be true. Some mess is honest. Kitchens prove it every morning. But on his phone, everything felt wiped with bleach. No thread wandered past a polite greeting. No receipts, no reminders, no read later articles he would usually forget to read later. Emptiness can be evidence. 2. I scrolled until the days thinned and then stopped. Because I am not the ocean, I do not chase every tide. A woman my age knows what vanishing looks like, the way a man learns to keep two lives separate. One tidy because the other isn't. I put the phone down as if it were sleeping. The room returned to its own sounds of fridge thrum. The gentle tick of the clock, my breath doing its faithful work. I wrote patterns erased in the small notebook and underlined it once. We are not detectives by nature, we women. We are archivists of what refuses to say itself. Not just love, paperwork. The next picture showed them by the brass letters of a law firm sign, the kind that promises order in exchange for signatures. Their bodies did not touch, but their shadows nearly did. Tom's notes were spare time, place, duration. I filled in the rest with what-ifs that tasted like old pennies. There are betrayals that live in corners, and there are those that learn to dress themselves in legal language. I traced the serif of the firm's name with my fingertip on the screen, the way you read a grave marker when you're not ready to say goodbye. I am the one who files our taxes, who keeps incorporation papers in a blue folder with a cracked tab. I know how quickly ink can move money, homes, histories. My bakery was not a hobby, it was a spine. I added a divider in my notebook business. I wrote protect. A balcony kiss burned the last of my hope. The image was a long reach across evening, windows stacked like a grid of private planets. On the third floor, a brief eclipse, 2 faces close, a hand at a jaw, an almost chaste kiss that told the truth better than anything raw could. I wanted to be the kind of woman who throws a coat around her shoulders and storms a lobby. I am not. I am the kind who watches once, then looks away to protect what's left of her own insides. The balcony railing glowed gold. The sky behind them forgave too much. Tom had time-stamped it. I copied the time into my notebook, the pen making a careful comma. There are commas in grief breaths you take so you don't drown. Back in my kitchen, I stood by the sink, and let the cold water run a little longer than necessary. Hope likes warmth. Facts need coolness. Hurry the fake contracts. The chain is mine. Tom's whisper over the phone warned me before the file arrived. I listened with my palms flat on the table, as if bracing a storm. Voices bounced in the darkness of a parking lot. Her bright, impatient, his low, reassuring. The words weren't loud, but they were efficient. I paused the file and memorized the exact moment my bakery turned from livelihood into target. I have always believed in paper more than promises invoices. Health permits, napkin counts, they were speaking my language now, in theft. The audio wavered as a car went by. The cruelest things often require the ordinary to keep moving around them. When it ended, I opened my blue folder, the real one, not the one on my phone, and slid in a fresh copy of our ownership documents. I wrote a new line, audit everything. I whispered to the empty room, not today, not ever. They weren't stealing a marriage. They were stealing my life's work. I said it out loud to hear how it held. The bakery has my fingerprints baked into its counters. My mother's laugh trapped in the crack of the tiled floor we never fixed. The names of hotel managers who took a chance on a woman with a second-hand mixer. If you want to destroy a woman like me, you don't need to break her heart. You try to break her schedule. You pry invoices loose. You move the delivery van from its morning spot. I pictured Allison counting cash drawers that never belonged to her and felt a clean line draw itself across my chest. The line did not howl. It organized. I opened a spreadsheet, wrote down vendors, contracts, renewal dates, and passwords I had been meaning to memorize anyway. When the ground gives, you lay planks one by one, until you can walk again. He floated complicated papers. I let it float. He came home with a mouth tired from a story and poured wine like a truce. We ate the kind of dinner marriages are made of: bread, small talk, a napkin folded and refolded for no reason. He mentioned a client who needed a signature, the sort of form I might not have time to read. I smiled into my plate. The trick, I've learned, is to give a man enough rope to find his own honesty. I asked if he wanted more salt. He said he was fine. We discussed a neighbor's new fence. The clock kept time on behalf of both of us. After dishes, he left the papers near my chair, a stack that pretended to be boring. I did not touch them, let the bait dangle. I rinsed the glasses until they squeaked, then dried the counter in quiet circles. Some fish don't know the hook until morning. I chose stillness over spectacle. In the bathroom mirror, I met a woman I recognize more each year, soft around the eyes, firm around the mouth. The kind of face grief does not embarrass. Spectacle is loud but not strong. Stillness can hold weight. I brushed my hair the way my mother taught me, slow, from ends to root, untangling patiently because ripping only makes knots smaller and meaner. I decided what I will not do: no scenes in restaurants. No door slamming that scares the neighbors who bring soup. What I will do: keep records, be kind to my son, sleep enough to think clearly. I practiced a sentence I might need. Please send that in writing. The mirror didn't flinch. The older I get, the more I trust the quiet tools folders, calendars. The word no said gently. I kissed my fingers and pressed them to the glass. A silly, holy ritual, line drawn, heart intact. Kind eyes, no storms. On her porch, geraniums argued cheerfully with the weather, and Mrs. Peterson waved me up the steps as if I had only come for sugar. She poured tea into mugs that had seen decades of hands and said nothing for a long, generous minute. Then, "You look thin around the spirit." "Honey," I smiled, the kind that says thank you for seeing without prying. We talked about the school board and the pothole at Maple and 3rd, and how the stray cat has decided her yard is a republic. Community is a soft net. It doesn't stop the fall, but it slows it down. Before I left, she touched my wrist. Whatever it is, you're not crazy. The blessing landed like bread. On the walk home, the sky did its blue work, and I did mine, put one foot, then the other, on the ordinary ground that remembers who I am. Follow the money. Follow the rooms. Tom's voice on the phone was plain as paper. He had dates lined up, addresses, a map of where truth tends to spend its evenings. We agreed on the next steps lawful, careful, witnessed by timestamps. I like men who prefer stamps to swagger. After we hung up, I called the bakery supplier about an extra order of sugar. March always surprises me with weddings, and I let that small normalcy steady my breath. Then I opened my notebook and made 2 columns home and elsewhere, under each. I listed what belonged to me: leases, accounts, keys. It is easier to defend a border once you've drawn it. Tom texted again, if anything escalates, call me first. I replied with a simple understood, no punctuation, no flourish. The day felt narrower and somehow kinder. A plan is a kind of kindness, too. If truth has a stage, it will be daylight. I wrote the sentence on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge where we keep dentist reminders and coupons that always expire before we use them. I pictured the worst possibilities and then set them outside, like muddy boots on a mat not in my kitchen. Daylight means other eyes, neighbors who water at odd hours, baristas who notice faces, clerks who remember names. It means if the truth wants to perform. I won't be the only audience. I do not crave humiliation. I crave clarity. Sometimes clarity is public because secrecy has refused to be private. I packed a small tote notebook, phone charger, a granola bar that tastes like earnest cardboard. If the day asked me to stand, I would stand fed. I watered the fern by the sink and whispered what my mother said before funerals. We will behave like ourselves. Dates, times, faces, signatures. I wrote the 4 words at the top of a fresh page and felt calmer than I had in days. I printed thumbnails of the photos small on purpose, so my heart wouldn't have to hold them full size, and slid them into plastic sheets. I added captions: steakhouse, 7:42 p.m., law office, 3:18 p.m., hotel balcony, dusk. I tucked in copies of the bakery's operating agreement and the contact list for vendors who will vouch for the truth of my hours. An archive is not a shrine, it's a tool. I dated each page, left margins for notes, and flagged sections with tabs the color of traffic lights: red for stop, yellow for caution, green for go. I am not racing, but I am moving. When I closed the binder, the click sounded like a door, gently, decisively shut. Outside, the street lamp came on. Inside, I turned off the kitchen light and let the house keep me. He coos, I catalog. A message arrives dressed as care. Running late, new partner from out of town. Don't wait up. I read it twice, the way you check a pie through the oven window, knowing more minutes won't fix a bad recipe. I type back a sentence with no edges: be safe. Then I open my notebook and draw 2 neat lines: claim and counterproof. Under claim, I write his words exactly. Under counterproof, I list what stands against them: time-stamped photos, receipts, the 2 clean inbox. I am not arguing, I am arranging. The phone buzzes again, 3 dots, then nothing. Men forget that silence also speaks. I put the device face down and let the room take over. Spoon, sink, towel, breath in, breath out. A woman can hold tenderness in one hand and a ledger in the other without dropping either. I wipe the counter clockwise, then stop myself. This is not about circles, it's about lines. The act was for me. At family dinners, they sat far apart, like magnets turned the wrong way. Laughter skipping the gap between them. He'd ask Daniel about shifts at the station. She'd compliment my flan with careful, daughterly warmth. I used to admire the restraint, Thought it was maturity. Now I see choreography in an old photo on the mantel. Jack stands behind me with an arm at my shoulder. Gentle as a Sunday. Allison's smile is all shine beside my son. They look like two people planning a garden. I hold the frame and hear the click of the long-ago camera, a metronome for a song we never finished. Families perform for one another, the best ones, too. But performance becomes cruelty when it asks a mother to applaud her own erasure. I set the picture back and let the glass catch the light. The house knows the difference between acting and living. So do I. I won't break loud, I'll break clean. I say it while the kettle sighs, while the floor remembers our steps. Clean means no bargains with my self-respect. No midnight speeches to a man asleep. No martyrdom baked into breakfast. It means washing the knife and putting it away, sharp. I write a small prayer on a sticky note, clarity over drama, and press it to the inside of a cabinet where the measuring cups hang like quiet moons. The older I get, the more I trust simple tools, light, paper, rest. I rinse the apple I'm not hungry for and eat it anyway, because a steady body holds a steadier mind. When I catch my reflection in the black oven door, I nod as if greeting a neighbor. Hello, Evelyn. Don't rush. Salt the steps. Let courage be ordinary. Courage can be a woman folding a dish towel evenly, then choosing not to explain herself to anyone but God. Names I need to learn. Tom calls from his car, voice low, details tidy. There's a notary who keeps odd hours, a clerk who initials forms too quickly, a pattern of signatures that lean the same wrong way. He reads me a name and I write it down as if labeling a jar in my pantry so I won't mistake sugar for salt when it matters. We speak about boundaries and admissible things, about how truth behaves best when it's witnessed. I do not know these offices, but I know the language dates, seals, lines where you do not sign for other people's lives. After the call, I whisper the names once more and tuck the page behind a tab in my binder. Learning isn't only for the young. At 60, I'm still adding the shelves inside my head, clearing space for what will keep me upright. I make tea. I drink it hot. I memorize the calm between sips. If they go legal, so do I. I find the card a hotel manager once pressed into my hand when a competitor tried to copy our branding. Call if you ever need a grown-up in the room. He joked. I call. The receptionist's voice is kind without becoming curious. She gives me a time and a promise of privacy. I like people who don't hunt gossip. I email a short note dates, attachments, no adjectives, and feel the rightness of it. The way a level feels when a picture frame is finally straight. I am not spoiling for a fight. I am preparing to be believed. When the confirmation pings, I close my eyes and thank the woman I used to be. The one who kept records, paid taxes early, labeled folders like it meant something. It did. Good habits are handrails on bad stairs. I put the business card back in my wallet. A quiet sword in a soft purse. Paper cuts that heal. On the dining table, I lay out manila envelopes like bandages. Photos, transcripts, receipts, corporate. I print what must be paper, not pixels, and let the warm sheets breathe before I stack them. There's a comfort to stapling, to the bite of metal, deciding what belongs together. I slide evidence into sleeves and write dates in block letters. The way a teacher writes a name, a child will learn to answer to. The wax seal kit Daniel bought me as a joke years ago, red as a cherry, sits in a drawer. I set it beside the envelopes and then, smiling, put it back. We don't need pretty now. We need plain. I bind each packet with twine from the bakery. Tie knots I can trust. Label spines I can read in a hurry. When I'm done, the table looks like a calm harbor. Boats ready. Weather noted. The storm may come. I will not drift. My son fights fires. Today he will meet smoke of a different kind. I watch him leave for his shift boots. Jacket, the practiced respect with which he lifts his gear. He kisses my cheek, a quick ceremony from boyhood that neither of us retired. I bless him without saying it out loud. He doesn't know the script life has handed him, not yet. I hope the day is gentle, that hydrants behave and ladders don't splinter. I fold a towel and think of the first time he ran toward trouble. 8 years old with a garden hose, rescuing worms from sunburn. Compassion can make a man brave and breakable in the same breath. I check the folder one more time, not because it changed, but because my hands need somewhere to put their fear. Whatever truth does to my son, I will stand close enough to hold him and far enough to let him keep his dignity. Quiet is where courage grows. I turn off the television I wasn't watching, light the small lamp that flatters this old house, and let the night settle like a shawl across my shoulders. Dinner is a bowl of soup that tastes like childhood. Dishes stack themselves without complaint. I lay out tomorrow's clothes, nothing dramatic. The cardigan with the mended elbow, shoes that understand waiting. In bed. I read 3 pages of a novel and realize I've been staring at the same sentence. So I close the book and listen instead. Pipes whisper, trees think. Somewhere a dog decides the moon is worth discussing. I say a short prayer for all the women who don't yet have words for what they know. I ask for the strength to trade anger for accuracy, spectacle for steadiness. When sleep comes, it is thin but kind. I hold the corner of it like a child holds a blanket, not tight, just sure. Tom knows where to stand. Early, he texts a simple here, no exclamation points. I picture him across the street, part shadow, part civic duty, the way decent people become fixtures when the truth needs furniture. We've agreed on no surprises, he observes. Records with respect, keeps a timeline that can enter a room without blushing. I brew coffee and pour one into a travel mug I don't intend to drink. A prop of normalcy in a day that may forget manners. He sends a second text with 2 words, all legal and the relief is physical, like loosening a ring that's pinched too long. I don't ask for details about his equipment. I don't need to know how clocks work to be on time. I wipe the sink, straighten the rug by the door, and feel the house become a witness instead of a stage. If truth arrives today, it will have a chair. I let their certainty do the work. There is always a window lovers think is safe, the hour neighbors commute. The afternoon stores are busy, the time when the world looks away because it has errands. I mark the block on the fridge calendar with a square that means nothing to anyone but me. Routine is camouflage. It is also a trap. He thinks my day is a map he drew, that I will follow the errands he suggested, the appointment he circled. Bless his predictability. I set the kitchen timer for something I don't need to bake and whisper to myself the recipe for patience, low heat, long time, do not stir. Sunlight squares the floor like paper waiting for signatures. I don't pace. I fold dish towels and stack them by color. Because order is a kindness to a nervous heart. Let them trust the gap. Let truth fill it. Rooms remember what mouths forget. I've set the tools I'm allowed. Nothing theatrical, nothing sharp, just the ordinary ways a day can keep its own notes. The bedroom knows our years where his weight dips the mattress, where morning light draws a pale ladder across the wall. The hallway knows the tempo of his steps, their false hurry when he's late for virtue. I am careful with myself. I do not lurk or stage. I let the walls do the holding and the clocks do the counting. If anyone asks later how I knew, I will say what women have always said the house told me. I smooth the quilt, tuck the corner like I'm teaching steadiness to fabric, and breathe until my ribs stop arguing. Truth does not need tricks, it needs a place to land. I open a window an inch, just enough for air to keep faith with us, and then I leave the room alone. He kisses routine, I kiss goodbye, coffee, toast, small comments about weather that has already decided what it will do. He makes a show of patting pockets for keys. he always puts in the same place. I hand them to him like the past tense. Here you were. His smile is the matinee version of remorse, convincing until the evening runs long. I pack a bag with nothing dramatic: tissues, water, a notebook, a pen that writes even when tilted upside down. When the door closes, I stand for a moment in the vacuum it leaves. The house inhales. I exhale. I rinse the cup, place it upside down on the drying rack. A small period at the end of a long, hopeful sentence. The clock gives me its minute hand. I take it. There are days you don't need courage, only sequence. Step, lock, breathe, go. I needed a witness. And tea. Mrs. Peterson opens her door before I knock. Like prayer with a hinge, from her front window we can see my stoop. The hydrangea I've failed 3 summers in a row. The way light looks honest at mid-morning. She doesn't pepper me with questions. She arranges lemon slices in a saucer and nudges it closer as if courage needs garnish. We talk about her cat's vendetta against the mail carrier and the price of milk. 2 subjects strong enough to hold a silence. When the taxi stops, we both go quiet without deciding to. Time becomes polite. It steps back to let a scene enter. Mrs. Peterson's hand finds mine, a neighbor's sacrament. Whatever happens, she says, you are still you. The sentence lands like bread in a body that hasn't eaten. I nod and do not cry. There will be time for water later. Today needs salt. If truth hurts my son, I will hold him first. That promise stands in me like a beam. Through Mrs. Peterson's glass, the world continues: dogs, deliveries, someone arguing kindly with a stroller. Inside, the air thins. I think of Daniel's first day at the station. How his hands shook a little tying his laces. How he smiled when he saw himself in the side of the truck, not from vanity but from belonging. My boy belongs to the public now. Today, the public will take something private from him. I steady myself with the oldest ritual I know. Name what I can keep. I can keep my voice low. I can keep my papers clean. I can keep my arms ready. If his mouth opens on a question that has no answer, I can close the distance and hold the man who once fit under my chin. The siren will say the rest. She arrives like a secret. Taxi idling, sunglasses too large for a morning that hasn't earned drama. She doesn't look up. Secrets rarely admire the sky. From Mrs. Peterson's window. I watch the choreography I've already named: the pause at the curb, the quick check of the street, the small sprint to the door. My house receives her because houses are polite. My hands stay around a warm mug I don't taste. Across the glass, time turns syrupy, drags slow, then slips. The door closes, the hydrangea trembles, the cab pulls away with the relief of things that aren't complicit. I do not narrate this to myself as tragedy or proof. It is simply the next true thing. In the reflection, Mrs. Peterson's face appears beside mine, 2 women in a frame no one posed for. Breathe, she says, and the word is not instruction, but companionship. I count to 4, out to 6. The morning nods. The stage sets itself. Laughter, glasses, then silence turning heavy. The app's waveform moves like a small tide peaks of clink and murmur. Then a hush with a different gravity. Rooms have a way of changing their mind mid-sentence. I listen the way a seamstress listens to fabric for the tear before it shows. A drawer slides. A voice tries to make ordinary sounds do extraordinary hiding. My throat tightens, but my fingers rest, palms open on my knees, as if to say, let the truth run its own feet. Mrs. Peterson touches my elbow once, a neighbor's benediction, then lets me be. Time marks itself in responsible ways: mail truck, sparrows, a jogger deciding against one more block. In my ear, breath becomes a character. On the screen, the line stutters. I think of all the kitchens where women have waited with kindness they did not owe. and I add my name to them, not as martyr, but as witness. A small kitchen chaos draws a crowd. It begins the way most commotions do, one person noticing, another naming, a third deciding to care out loud. From across the street, I see a thin ribbon of gray smoothing itself under my eaves. Nothing wild, just the kind of domestic mischief that makes neighbors appear with helpful faces. Someone points, someone dials. Mrs. Peterson sets her cup down and says, "We'll stay put." I nod. This is not theater, it's weather. The house, wise enough to speak in signals, asks for attention. I let it have what it needs. No running, no wailing. I think of all the times I've opened windows to let cinnamon or sorrow drift out. How scent teaches a block about the lives it holds. Today, the air writes our address on itself. I take one quiet sip of tea and tuck hair behind my ear. I have asked for daylight. Daylight comes with an audience. My name in their mouths, my breath steady. Evelyn's house calls someone. Is she home? The chorus gathers in the key of concern with a harmony of curiosity. It is not cruelty, it is community doing what it does when a porch becomes a headline. I let their voices wash over me and decide not to drown. Breath is the oldest tool I own. In, count, out, count, between counts. I say a short vow to myself I will not add lies to a room already full of them. Mrs. Peterson leans on the sill like a lighthouse. "You're okay," she says, meaning now more than ever after, across the street. A man fetches a garden hose he won't need, a kindness looking for a job. I think of how quickly news travels on sidewalks, and how slowly a heart learns it's allowed to stop apologizing. The street tilts towards Siren. I stand up straighter. The siren belongs to my son. It rounds the corner like a sentence he never meant to speak. Red light stitching the street into urgency. I have watched Daniel run toward other people's worst moments and felt pride like a steady drum. Today, the drum miscounts. The truck brakes in a practiced arc. Boots hit pavement. Hands know what to carry before minds do. I see him before he sees the house. Focused, measured, the posture of a man trained to aim his care. He gives orders I can mouth along to. I've heard this choreography in dinner-time stories. Neighbors part, making a path out of their worry. I do not wave. I press my palm to the window frame and let wood hold what my body cannot drop. Sirens are honest instruments. They never pretend to be lullabies. The street listens. Somewhere, a bird finishes its song because it does not know how not to. He's a chief. He's also my child. Daniel takes the steps 2 at a time, the way boys do when cake is ready, not grief. The ram meets the door with a thud that history understands houses are built to resist. Then forgive. Splinters bloom like brief, surprised flowers. The team moves past him in a respectful wave. Each man a verb check, call, clear. I don't see the moment his professional gaze recognizes the private frame, the couch we found at a yard sale, the rug he learned to crawl on, the hallway that taught him knees. I only know the angle of his shoulders tightens, a line drawn by muscle memory and mercy. Mrs. Peterson whispers, "Lord, keep him," in a tone that doesn't care who's listening. I grip the saucer so the cup won't chatter against the porcelain. If the world must break, let it break around his training first, and only later if it must around his heart. Some doors open to rooms you can't unsee. I don't need the picture to know it. The air changes when shame takes off its shoes. In my ear, the audio falters into a hush that has nothing to do with kindness. There are many kinds of silence this one's made. Of stunned bright pain, a voice starts, stops, tries to climb out of its own throat. Another voice becomes smaller than its years. I close my eyes and let my body become a chair for the weight of it. On the street, a neighbor mutters a prayer. Another says a name like a question. I keep my promise to myself. I will not narrate their humiliation. I will narrate my choosing. I choose to stand still. I choose to save my son the sight of my face when he turns. I choose to let the truth be its own witness. Inside, doors know what they've done. Shame is loud even when people whisper. The porch gathers phrases the way dew gathers on fences, quiet. Everywhere. Oh, no. I thought pour the words, don't form sentences, because sentences would make this reasonable. And nothing about this is reasonable. A boy on a bike circles once, then twice, the geometry of confusion. Someone records, someone scolds, someone forgets what they were about to say, forever. I feel oddly protective of the very people who will carry this story down the block. They didn't ask to be cast. I press my tongue to the roof of my mouth to keep it from flooding. Mrs. Peterson's hand returns to mine, anchor and permission across the glass. I catch my reflection between hers, two women practicing the art of not flinching. There is power in letting a moment be exactly what it is, no bigger, no smaller. The world leans in, the truth holds. His silence is the loudest sound I've ever heard. When he steps back onto the porch, the set of his jaw has changed. Boy and chief have negotiated a fragile truce. He doesn't look for me blessing an ache all at once. He speaks into his radio with the careful grammar of a man keeping his own heart from saying too much. I read the message in the angle of his neck. Not here, not now. He lifts a hand, and the team moves with him, a flock obeying wind, for a second. His eyes drop to his boots, and I see the boy who skinned his knee on our driveway and said, "Don't tell Dad, I want to be brave first." I put my palm on the glass as if warmth could cross. It can't, but steadiness can. I send it like a quiet letter he will open later, when the room in him has chairs again. The performance ends, the bill arrives. The truck idles softer, neighbors release the breath they were holding for me. A firefighter coils hose with the reverence of a ritual. Another sets a cone straight as if control could be made of plastic. Daniel confers with someone out of my sightline, then walks the perimeter like a man measuring his future in feet. No one claps. Good. This is not that kind of show. I watch the door stand ajar, hinge embarrassed by its own usefulness. The morning, exhausted by honesty, becomes noon. I smooth my skirt and feel the simple, holy weight of next steps settle into my bones. Call the lawyer. Call Tom, protect the business, feed whoever is hungry. On the street, the truck pulls away with a polite growl. Red light fades from the hedges. In the window, I am still standing. That will have to be enough, and today it is. I bring a folder, not fury facts. The hospital smells like lemons pretending to be mercy. At the nurse's station, I say my name the way you steady a picture on a wall. A young woman leads me to a room where fluorescent light flattens everything into the same pale color. Jack looks smaller than his voice ever allowed. Allison looks young in a way that makes me ache for someone else's mother. I set the folder down on the tray table with both hands, as if it were heavy and holy. Dates, times, signatures, my quiet choir. We're not here to argue. I say to the air more than to them. We're here to finish. The word lands without echo. I keep my breath slow. Grief wants theater. Dignity prefers prose. In the hallway, a monitor beeps like a metronome for courage. I open the folder to the first page, and the rustle sounds like a door deciding. 40 years end here. Jack. I place the documents where a plate might go. Ordinary as breakfast. He reaches for apology the way a child reaches for cookies before dinner reflex. Learned, not nourishing. I hold up a palm and let it be a season no. My attorney's note is clipped to the front, clear, spare. Enough? I slide a pen across, the same kind I used to sign for flower deliveries. and watch his fingers hesitate as if ink were fire. Allison stares at her hands like they belong to someone steadier. I don't narrate forgiveness. I don't audition rage. I say what must be said. Assets, house, bakery, boundaries. I am kind to the nurse who keeps forgetting where to put the water cup because it is not her job to stand in this weather. When the pen finally scratches, the sound is smaller than thunder and bigger than blame. I sign my name last, like a promise kept. Allison cries the way a window leaks slow. Surprising, hard to fix without replacing the frame. She says my name once, twice, as if calling a cat inside. I offer nothing but the courtesy of not looking away. Daniel stands in the doorway like a doorway, built to carry thresholds. He doesn't speak. No words is a kind of answer. His gaze falls somewhere safe floor tile, shoe, the place where light catches a corner of the bed rail and turns forgiveness into a theory. Jack tries my son's name on his mouth and finds it too heavy to lift. The nurse clears her throat the way people do when they want to move a scene along without starring in it. I close the folder, the soft clap of paper a benediction for difficult clarity. Daniel's radio murmurs a call from a world that needs him in ways I cannot. He nods once. I nod back. Love, still working. He asks why. I hold the boy in the man, in the fluorescent hush of the corridor. Daniel leans against a wall that has heard every version of grief. How long, he whispers, but length is a crooked measure for betrayal. I tell him what I know and stop where the facts stop. I do not give him pictures his sleep would have to fight. He rubs a hand over his jaw, the motion his father taught him when shaving was still a lesson and not a mirror. I say the thing I promised at the window, whatever it does to you, I'm here first. His shoulders drop a fraction, an inch a mother can hear. We stand like that hips, history, hinge until the nurse passes with a cart and looks relieved to see kindness surviving. Before we go, he squeezes my shoulder. Let's get you home, he says, and the words fit, easy as keys. You're strong, they say. I'm simply still. The bakery fills before dawn, nurses from night shift, teachers with chalk dust hiding in the lines of their palms, the mail carrier who knows every dog by name. They order flan like it's medicine and tell me stories about their aunts, their first husbands. The day they learned their worth costs more than anyone's convenience. Community chooses without ballots sometimes. Someone mends my awning stitch by stitch. Someone else leaves a bouquet in a mason jar with no card. Because what matters is that petals insist on color. A woman I barely know slips cash into the tip jar and says, for the legal stuff, I want to protest, and then I don't. Generosity is a language. You don't correct grammar when someone is blessing you. I keep the line moving, sugar steady, voice soft. The bell over the door keeps time. Inside me, something unclenches. Ovens sing again. The morning heat lifts worry like dough, stretches it thin until light shows through. I ladle caramel, watch it settle like a small sun, and feel my hands remember their old wisdom, low heat. Long patience. Do not rush the set. Work is not escape. It's harmony reclaimed. I move through stations in a steady loop scale. Whisk, pour, wipe, breathe. The mixer's hum becomes a kind of forgiveness that doesn't forget. Daniel carries trays with a seriousness that honors pastry and mother in equal measure. He jokes just once about my labeling system, and the sound surprises us both in a sweet way. A hotel bumps its order. A new cafe calls about wholesale. I add slots to the delivery board and feel the ordinary future arrive like a truck I can hear before I see it. Flour dust turns my wrists into small galaxies. I let them sparkle. No one owns this light but us. He handles invoices, I handle sugar. At the counter we trade roles like recipes. He learns the tempo of calls. I learn the heft of inventory. I show him the trick with the label maker so tabs sit square. He shows me a spreadsheet that smiles back because every number finally has its place. We eat staff meal at the sink soup sipped from mugs, heels of bread buttered like gratitude. When the supplier asks for a credit card update, Daniel answers with a voice I don't hear on the phone. It's older and also 8 years old. He doesn't talk about the hospital. I don't ask him to. We set our metronome to the bell over the door and let customers be the chorus. A girl points to a flan and says, "That one looks like sunshine." And I tuck the sentence in my apron pocket by closing time. The cash drawer balances to the penny. So do we. Church light, long walks, stories shared. I sit where the stained glass paints the pew in colors no quarrel can dull and let my breath return to its first, simpler job. I don't bargain with heaven. I thank it for making room. On Tuesdays, Mrs. Peterson loops the block with me, gossiping kindly about the geraniums and the new yoga studio that will last exactly until winter at the community center. I swap recipes with women who understand that tenderness is a technique as much as a feeling. I say yes to coffee with the teacher who always orders cinnamon toast. No to any conversation that confuses drama with purpose. At night, I read 3 pages and fall asleep on the 4th, a luxury I honor by not rewinding shame. I moisturize my hands like they belong to a pianist, because they do. In a way, every morning, they play the old keys, the song is mine again. And when I switch off the shop lights at last, I leave one small bulb above the stove, not for him, not for ghosts, but for the woman I kept. She can always find her way home. And when the noise thinned, I was left with the first small truths the jacket dropped careless. A perfume I don't wear, a message blinking on a phone that never pings, a receipt that spelled another city. Follow me back a few days. The signs were quiet. I wasn't. Not anymore. I wear the ring on a chain. I keep the memory, not the wound. The gold rests at my collarbone like a period at the end of a sentence I finished carefully. Some days I touch it without thinking, the way you check for your keys. Other days I forget it's there until sunlight finds it and makes a small fire I don't have to put out. Symbols behave better when they're told the truth. The house has forgiven the door forgives the hinge. In a kitchen drawer, I keep a photograph of the 4 of us and do not throw it away. It belongs to a season that fed us something real before the recipe turned. When customers ask for the usual, I smile and mean it. My life has a usual again. Before I flip the sign to open, I straighten the frames on the wall and feel something in me straighten too. Steady. Enough. Morning comes honest. I turn the key, and the bell over the door answers like an old friend. Light lays itself across the counter. The ovens warm the room the way forgiveness warms a chest slow. From the inside out, they lost what they tried to steal. I kept what mattered, my son, my work, and myself. The ledger balances in ways paper can't show a hand steadier on a pen. A name spoken without shrinking. A house that breathes easy again. I portion caramel, slide trays into the heat, and think of every woman who has stood in a kitchen deciding to remain whole. If you've survived betrayal, tell me what helped you heal and where you're watching from. Your words might be someone's lifeline. A light left on in a dark hallway. The sign in the window flips to open. Outside, the town begins its gentle noise. Inside, I smile small and true and start the day I chose.